Hi, I'm Michael McPadden from the Tango API team, here to give you more guidance in using Tango's Mobile Procurement API, often referred to as ModProc for short. In this video, I'll be showing you how to assemble the shipping information for an order request. Any mobile procurement or care transaction order that might need to send some physical items to someone will need to include a valid shipping information within the request. This is done by adding a ship-to data block to your request body JSON. But before assembling that block, you must first identify the valid address format for a specific location to where you want to ship. You can get this information from the region/ID endpoint. This endpoint requires passing a region ID in as a URI parameter. If you do not know the region ID for your selected country, then you can query the regions collection endpoint to get a list of all available countries along with their IDs. A successful call to the region/ID endpoint will return a response that contains an address format block. Within this block, you will find all the valid address components in proper order for your selected country. You can then use all of this information to assemble an input form in a user interface which your end users can use to provide an address. Or, if you already know the address you want to ship to, you can simply parse the response to extract all the address component IDs, then set the values, and assemble the ship-to block yourself. We'll take a look at an example of an assembled ship-to block in a minute, but first I want to describe what is contained in the address format block of a region detail response. It can contain the following: an ID, which is the unique identifier for that specific address component, a label, which is the description of the component suitable for displaying to an end user, a min length, which is the minimum number of characters that are allowed for this field, and a max length, which is the maximum number of characters allowed. Validation, which indicates whether or not this field must be included in this address. The value will either be required or optional. Options, an array of choices that are acceptable values for this field, and a most common example of this would probably be a list of states or provinces. A pattern, which is the pattern that the value should match, for example, a 5-digit or 9-digit string for a US postal code, and this pattern can be displayed as a hint to the end user. And regex, the regular expression pattern that can be used to validate the value. And before we get to that demo, just a quick explanation of what's included in the ship-to block. There are 4 top-level properties: a name, and this is the name of the person to whom the shipment is being addressed; the region, which is the ID of the country to which the package will be sent; address, this is a block containing all the components that compose the shipping address, with each component simply containing an ID and a value; and an expedite, which is a Boolean to indicate whether or not the shipment is to be sent via the fastest method available, such as the next business day, but please note that additional charges may apply. Okay, now using our developer portal, I want to show you how to assemble a ship-to block. In this example, I'll show you shipping to an address within the United States. So first we'll go to the region/ID endpoint, click the Get tab, click the Try It link, check off my scopes. Okay, now I'll enter in the ID for the United States, enter my remaining parameters, and submit my request. Okay, we'll scroll down to the response. But before we look at the address format block, I just want to make a quick observation about what can be found in the meta block. As you can see, with most of our API responses, there's an href containing a fully qualified URI for repeating the same call. But you can also see the href children property here. Notice the additional query parameter of parent region. This API call will return all of the child regions for this country. In our case, it would be all of the states within the USA. If we had queried for Canada, then it would return all of the Canadian provinces. Okay, onto the address format block. Inside of this array is where we find all the address components that are supported for this region. For example, we have the ID. This is the unique identifier for this specific component. You'll want to keep track of these, since we will use them when assembling our shipping address information block in our order request. We have the label, the max length, min length, as well as the validation, indicating whether it's required or optional. Required components must be included in the order for our shipping address to be valid. Now let's scroll down a little bit to the state component. Notice that this one includes the options array we talked about. These are the only acceptable values that can be set. This array is especially useful for when we want to surface these options as a drop-down list in a user interface. And finally, let's scroll down to the postal code component. Notice that in this one, we can see an example of pattern and regex. As I mentioned, pattern contains our hint of what the value should look like, and regex is a regular expression that we can use for validation purposes. Now that we know what address components we need, we can now assemble the ship to block for our order. To see an example of this within the context of an order request, let's go to the orders endpoint and select the post method. This time, we will not click on the try it link. Instead, I simply want to scroll down to the bottom to show you the request example. Toward the end of the JSON is a ship to block. We can see the name of the recipient, the region ID, the address containing all of the required address components. Each is set with a valid value. And lastly, we see the expedite flag. In this example, it's set to true. So there you have it. You now know how to determine what address information you'll need for shipping physical items to any country. And you have also seen how to assemble the shipping information inside the ship to block that is included within your order request. For greater details about some of the areas that I've discussed, I recommend watching a few of our other videos, including the ones for how to order a new device and service plan, or the one how to request a change for an existing service asset. Each of these videos provides helpful explanations of how to complete these particular areas of an order request. I hope you found this video useful. For more information and tutorials on other topics, we recommend browsing the MobProc API video library at mobproc.tv, and our documentation website at mobproc.info. That's all for now. Thanks for watching and have a great day.